You walk through the broken, dust-covered streets of Kabul. On both sides, little children sell wooden toys and cheap trinkets, hoping to earn just enough coins to buy food for the night. The air is thick, filled with the scent of burning wood and dry earth. In the distance, the sound of the call to prayer echoes through the ancient minarets, as if the city is still clinging to a faint memory of hope. But beneath this ordinary scene hides a truth so dark, so horrifyingly organized, that it chills your soul. This isn't a story from centuries past, this is the Afghanistan of today, where power, culture, and religion have merged into a machinery that devours innocence. You think you've seen the limits of human cruelty, that the darkest chapters of history are long behind us? Think again, because you're about to enter a nightmare called Bachabazi, a world where boys are turned into living dolls for the pleasure of powerful men, and where an entire society watches in silence. This isn't the act of a few twisted men, it's a system woven together by politics, money, religion, and fear. In the streets of Afghanistan, a chilling saying is whispered as truth. Women are for children, boys are for pleasure. That single sentence captures the heart of this darkness. Now imagine this. You're a 9-year-old boy living in a mud house where the stove hasn't been lit for days. Your father was killed in war, and your mother's eyes are empty, haunted by hunger and helplessness. Then, one day, he arrives a man with gold teeth, dressed in fine clothes, stepping out of a car worth more than your family will ever own. He speaks softly to your mother, and within moments, a bundle of cash rests in her trembling hands, more money than she's ever seen. But he isn't there to adopt you. He's there to buy you, to make you his bacha, a boy dancer, a toy, a servant to his every desire, until you are no longer of use. This is Bachabazi, literally meaning boy play. But in reality, it is one of the most horrifying forms of modern-day child slavery. And it doesn't happen in the shadows. It happens in the open, in lavish gatherings attended by police officers, government officials, and even religious leaders. The boys, often between 10 and 18 years old, are dressed in women's clothes, their faces painted with makeup, their hair styled with flowers and ribbons. They are trained to dance, to move their bodies in ways that ignite the desires of the men who own them. But the dance is only the beginning. When the applause fades and the crowds leave, the boys are taken to private rooms where the real horror begins. And here's the most disturbing part: these men have built an entire web of excuses to justify what they do. They say it's not homosexuality because there's no love. They say it's not sin because no women are involved. They hide behind religion, behind culture, behind power, and they call their crimes tradition. This system has existed for generations. Poor families sell their sons to survive, and once a child falls into this world, his childhood, his innocence, his humanity, everything is stripped away. In the streets of Afghanistan today, you won't hear the laughter of children. You'll only hear the silent cries of boys who were never allowed to grow up, cries that echo through time, ignored by the world that chose not to listen. In the broken streets of Afghanistan, where poverty is etched into every face, there are stories that chill the soul. These are the stories of young boys, orphans, beggars, and sons of families so poor they can barely find a meal each day. These children become the easiest prey in a world that feeds on desperation. Sometimes they are kidnapped from their homes. Other times, they are snatched from the streets where they beg for scraps of food. In many cases, the parents themselves hand them over to powerful men in exchange for a handful of money. They are told that their sons will be educated, cared for, and given a future they could never provide. But the truth is far darker. These innocent boys are thrown into an abyss from which there is no return. Their parents face a cruel choice: watch their children die from hunger, or give them away to men who promise safety but deliver hell. It is a choice no parent should ever have to make. Yet thousands of Afghan families face this horror every single year. Once a boy becomes part of the Bachabazi world, he stops being a child. He becomes a possession. His name, his identity, his childhood, everything is stripped away. He is given a new name, often a feminine one. He is trained to speak softly, to move his hips when he walks, to obey every command with gratitude. His natural masculinity is crushed through psychological torture and physical abuse. He becomes a living doll, molded to satisfy the twisted desires of his owner. He is taught specific dances, every movement crafted to appear seductive and feminine. He is told this is an honor, that he should be proud to be chosen. He learns how to wear makeup, how to dress, how to style his hair, how to smile even when his soul is breaking inside. This training is not just physical, but deeply psychological. The boys are slowly broken down and rebuilt into slaves of pleasure. They are told they have no worth beyond their ability to satisfy men. They are told resistance is useless, that escape is impossible, that their families have abandoned them and the world has forgotten them. Those who resist are beaten, starved, or worse. They are threatened with death, not only for themselves, but for their families back home. They are shown what happens to those who try to run away, boys, who are tortured until others learn never to think of freedom again. The sexual abuse they endure is not a single act of violence. It is an ongoing nightmare that can last for years. These children are used by their primary owners, rented out to others, paraded at parties, and sold again when they are no longer desirable. Their lives become a revolving door of pain and exploitation. The toll on their bodies and minds is devastating. Many suffer from internal injuries, infections, and sexually transmitted diseases. Their spirits are scarred with trauma that will never heal. Some live with constant pain, depression, and anxiety, while others die from exhaustion or abuse. The most horrifying part is how normalized this practice has become among the powerful elite of Afghanistan. Bachabazi gatherings are treated as social events, where influential men come together to watch young boys dance and then bid for their company. These events are attended by government officials, police commanders, military officers, and wealthy businessmen, men who should protect these children, but instead destroy them. This is the face of a society standing on the edge of moral collapse, where innocence has a price and humanity lies buried beneath centuries of silence and corruption. The activity has become so commonplace that DVDs off, boys who dance are sold openly in markets and all comprehend what they're truly promoting. The individuals involved in Bachabazi frequently regard it as an advantage of authority, a compensation for their position in the community. Having several bachas is regarded as an indicator of affluence and power. The greater the more boys a man governs, the greater the respect he receives instructions from his colleagues. It's a contorted status emblem that diminishes children to goods in a human marketplace anguish. This standardization extends to police services and the legal system. Police officers not only do not succeed in examining Bachi offences, yet frequently engage in them personally. Judicial bodies decline to pursue cases concerning strong individuals. And when individuals are apprehended, it's frequently the boys who are held responsible for prostitution, instead of the men who are assaulting them. The mental effect on these, the importance of children, cannot be exaggerated. They are existing in a perpetual condition of fear, not knowing when they will be called, what will be anticipated from them, or how a lot of suffering they will have to face. They create strategies for survival that entail total separation from their personal bodies and feelings. They acquire knowledge to vanish into their own thoughts, as their physical shapes are being utilized for the satisfaction of others. Numerous boys among them cultivate what psychologists refer to as acquired powerlessness, a mental condition where they become so accustomed to mistreatment that leads them to cease efforts to fight back or evade, even when chances present themselves. They have been methodically instructed that they are weak, that their pain is unavoidable, and that no one will assist them. This mental conditioning is so effective that certain boys will genuinely protect their perpetrators, asserting they are thankful for the protection and nourishment they accept. The pattern of mistreatment reaches deep outside the direct victims. Boys who survive Bachabazi usually develop to turn into offenders themselves. Possessing discovered that this is just the nature of power functions within Afghan society. They have been so thoroughly trained to perceive sexual exploitation as usual that they duplicate the identical patterns with the upcoming generation of at-risk youth. The mental effect on these, the importance of children cannot be exaggerated. They are existing in a perpetual condition of fear, not knowing when they will be called, what will be anticipated from them, or how a lot of suffering they will have to face. They create strategies for survival that entail total separation from their personal bodies and feelings. They acquire knowledge to vanish into their own thoughts, as their physical shapes are being utilized for the satisfaction of others. Numerous boys among them cultivate what psychologists refer to as acquired powerlessness, a mental condition where they become so accustomed to mistreatment that leads them to cease efforts to fight back or evade even when chances present themselves. They have been methodically instructed that they are weak, that their pain is unavoidable, and that no one will assist them. This mental conditioning is so effective that certain boys will genuinely protect their perpetrators, asserting they are thankful for the protection and nourishment they accept. The pattern of mistreatment reaches deep outside the direct victims. Boys who survive Bachabazi usually develop to turn into offenders themselves. Possessing discovered that this is just the nature of power functions within Afghan society. They have been so thoroughly trained to perceive sexual exploitation as usual that they duplicate the identical patterns with the upcoming generation of at-risk youth. It's a chilling loop that guarantees the practice persists endlessly through every cohort of survivors, transforming the upcoming generation of offenders. The financial motives supporting Bachabazi expose how profoundly ingrained this practice exists in Afghan society. Men who possess these boys, it's not merely concerning sexual pleasure, it concerns profit. Bachas are leased for gatherings, personal meetings, and unique occasions. They produce considerable revenue. For the individuals who regard them as animals in a distorted market setting, where the purity of childhood is purchased and transaction completed, the most successful butchers, those who are viewed as the most appealing and adept at dancing, can lead with authority costs. Their proprietors put resources into their looks, purchasing high-end cosmetics, accessories, and apparel to enhance their market worth. However, this investment has a cost. The more significant a boy grows, the greater his anticipated endurance, the more clients he is obligated to serve, and the more his youth is devoured by the requirements of the market. A few lads are transferred among various owners during their imprisonment, traded like assets, as their alterations in appearance or their possessors' interests change. Every shift brings new wounds, new anticipations, and new types of mistreatment. The boys learn to adjust swiftly to various homes, various regulations, and various kinds of utilization, cultivating a chameleon-like skill foreturn into whatever their present owner longings. The age advancement in Bachabazi precedes an expected and sorrowful sequence. Lads are usually selected around the age of 9 and 12 when they are at their most susceptible and simplest to manage. They are regarded most important during their early teenage years, during which they retain a childlike attributes but have acquired the abilities and training essential to execute their responsibilities efficiently. As they approach maturity and start to grow beard and manly traits, their worth in the Bachabazi market declines significantly. This process of aging generates a frightening time limit for these kids. They are aware that when they arrive in their late adolescence or in their early 20s, they will probably be thrown away by their proprietors and compelled to seek new methods for survival. Some are let go with nothing, abandoned to navigate a community that sees them as impaired merchandise. Others are retained as staff or sentinels, their deep understanding of the secrets of their previous owner, creating them important in various manners. The societal prejudice linked to previous backers facilitates reintegration into regular society almost unattainable. Afghan society perceives these boys as eternally contaminated. No matter the circumstance that they were subjected to systematic mistreatment, they are perceived as having taken part in same-sex acts that involve harsh social ramifications in a profoundly traditional community. Numerous individuals find it challenging to secure jobs, establish connections, or create typical lives following their liberation. The consequences of Bachabazi result in a creation of severely affected youthmen who bear the marks of their mistreatment into maturity. Numerous individuals experience significant mental health problems encompassing depression, anxiety, and disorder of post-traumatic stress. They cope with addiction to drugs, utilizing substances and beverages to dull the agony of their recollections. Certain individuals cultivate hostility, actions, having understood that aggression is a typical aspect of human communication. Faith becomes almost unachievable for these individuals who survived. They've experienced betrayal, the grown-ups who ought to have safeguarded them, taken advantage of by men who professed to care for them, and deserted by a community that was supposed to save them. This essential collapse in confidence impacts each connection they try to create, creating challenges in establishing a connection with others or have faith in the potential of sincere human compassion. The effect on their sexual maturation is especially destructive. These boys have been trained to see sex as something that happens to them. Instead, of something they engage in involuntarily. They have discovered that their bodies are present for the enjoyment of others, not for their personal pleasure or expression. This conditioning may influence their capability to establish positive romantic connections during their lifetimes. Numerous survivors face difficulties with their gender, identity, and sexual preference, compelled to enact femininity for years throughout their development advancement. They might sense uncertainty concerning their personal wishes, uncertain if their replies are genuine or just acquired actions aimed at satisfying their previous aggressors. This uncertainty can last for many years, impacting their capacity to comprehend themselves and their role in the world. The influence of Bachabazi on education is similarly destructive. Boys who are enlisted in this system are expelled from school and denied the chance to enhance the abilities and information they require to create effective existences. They receive lessons in dance, to execute cosmetics, and to satisfy men sexually, but they're not educated to read, write, or consider their situation thoughtfully. This lack of educational resources guarantees that they continue to rely on their victims and incapable of speaking up for themselves. The health impacts of Bachabazi reaches well beyond the direct bodily harm from sexual attack. These boys are subjected to sexual exploitation. Sexually transmitted infections, such as HIV, lacking adequate medical attention or therapy. They experience malnutrition when their owners fail to supply sufficient food, and they're refused medical care for injuries that may be addressed if they were acknowledged as victims instead of offenders. The seclusion enforced on these boys is another type of organized mistreatment. They are separated from their families, their neighborhoods, and all those who could assist them in grasping that the circumstance is incorrect. This seclusion creates them entirely reliant on their victimizers for fundamental human interaction and emotional assistance, forming a distorted type of Stockholm syndrome, in which they might form bonds with the very individuals who are ruining their lives. The reaction of the global community to Bachabazi has predominantly insufficient, obstructed by cultural relativism and political factors. Western governments and NGOs frequently strive to tackle the approach without seeming to enforce their beliefs on society in Afghanistan. This diplomatic sensitivity has enabled Bachabazi to persist with little impact on intervention as global influences stays concentrated on more prominent matters, while this organized mistreatment of minors remains in the darkness. The experience has demonstrated extraordinary strength in adapting to changed political situations. During the initial rule of the Taliban in the 1990s, Bachabazi was prohibited by law and harshly penalized, resulting in a notable reduction in the activity. Nevertheless, following the collapse of the Taliban in 2001, the practice re-emerged with revitalized energy comparable to prior Mujahideen leaders, re-established authority and dominance. These identical commanders, several of whom held engaged in Bachabazi throughout the Soviet control, led to the implementation of the practice, rejoined them as they took their places of power in the new administration. The resurgence of the Taliban in authority in 2021 generated an intricate and conflicting circumstance concerning Bachabazi. Though the Taliban has formally prohibited the training and enforced severe penalties for individuals found engaging, reports suggest that certain members of the Taliban themselves have participated in taking advantage of these boys. The prohibition on music and dancing has pushed the exercise deeper below ground, creating it even harder for global observers to record or take action. This subterranean change has caused their scenario riskier for the boys themselves, lacking the semi-public aspect of in traditional Bachi gatherings. There's a decreased supervision and diminished chances for boys are currently concealed in private combinations and distant areas, totally excluded from any chance of assistance or getaway. The financial bleakness that ensued the return of the Taliban has also raised the fragility of Afghan households. International assistance halted in the economy and downfall. Additional families are confronting the unmanageable dilemma between observing their kids suffer from hunger or selling them to individuals who will take advantage of them. The quantity of boys being enlisted, the involvement in Bachabazi has truly risen, despite the fact that the practice has grown more clandestine and hazardous. The psychological conditioning applied in Bachabazi is so powerful that numerous boys never completely heal even many years later their liberation. They hold the trauma within their physiques, within their connections, and in their capacity to rely on others, human individuals. Some turn into offenders themselves, realizing that strength refers to the capability to utilize those less strong than you. Others withdraw in isolation, unable to create significant relationships with anyone. The most tragic element of this whole system is the manner in which it annihilates not just personal lives, but also whole neighborhoods. When a community accepts the use of children, it generates a culture in which human dignity transforms, negotiable, where authority surpasses fundamental ethics, and where the most defenseless individuals within the community are regarded as goods instead of individuals. The boys who endure Bachabazi frequently express feeling as if they perished during their imprisonment and emerged anew as something completely different. They discuss acquiring the skill to distinguish. Their thoughts separate from their physical selves, to be present in a condition of continuous disconnection that permitted them to withstand the insufferable. However, this survival method carries awful price, making them feel alienated from their own selves and all those surrounding them for the remainder of their existence. The cycle persists today. At this moment, as you are viewing this video, somewhere in Afghanistan, a 9-year-old child is being attired in female garments and compelled to perform in front of a space filled with men who observe him merely as an item for their amusement. Somewhere different, the family is facing the difficult choice to part with their son instead of seeing him die of hunger. And at another location, a pasbacker is finding it difficult to reconstruct a life from the remnants of a youth that was taken from him prior to his even comprehended what was being removed. This is the truth of Bachabazi, not a historical method securely assigned to history texts, yet a vivid nightmare that keeps devouring the lives of children in Afghanistan as the world observes the alternative route. These boys are not just numbers or cases. Research. They are individuals who warranted safeguarding, learning opportunities, and the opportunity to develop in a secure environment. Rather, they have a system created to dismantle and reconstruct them as tools of satisfaction for men who ought to have been their guardians. The sorrow of Bachabazi isn't solely what it impacts each boy specifically. It is what it is, discloses information regarding a community that has permitted this terror to be accepted as normal, established, and safeguarded by those who hold authority. It serves as a reminder that the most at-risk individuals in our society are frequently those who endure the greatest pain when systems fail, when corruption flourishes, and when the influential determine that their wishes are more significant than human dignity. These kids warrant improved treatment. They merit a realm where being a child signifies security, where boys can mature, free from fear of being transformed into animated dolls, and where the influential are made responsible for safeguarding, instead of utilizing the naive. Until that reality emerges, the terror of Bachabazi will persist, consuming youthful lives and sustaining cycles of mistreatment that extends across generations. The tale of these young men is not only the disgrace of Afghanistan, it's the essence of humanity's shame, a signal of the distance we still must leave before we can genuinely state we safeguard our kids from individuals who would be detrimental to them.